Hi everyone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about contextualization and earning that point on your DBQ or LEQ essay. Contextualization is measuring whether or not you have the ability to put the topic of the prompt into broader historical context. So the winter break DBQ was about Reconstruction between 1860 and 1877. What we're wondering is, do you know what else is happening during that era? Or slightly before that would say that you'd identify larger themes or trends. And this needs to be like 3 to 4 sentences. They need to be content rich, so a lot of she. But that she has to be independent of what you would be using in your body paragraph as support. So in this case, it's not background information. It's what else is happening in this era. How is this topic part of a larger theme that's been happening in US history? So one way that you can do that is definitely use these contextualization phrases, like saying this was a time, this fits into like a pattern or a development, or this exemplifies the larger trend. So trend analysis usually is pretty good, or a common theme is pretty good. The one thing that you haven't been doing yet that you can actually do is also identify what else is happening in the era. Okay, so between 1816 and 1877, you could start out and say, within the context of the American Industrial Revolution, there were these political and constitutional questions about what happens to free blacks. But you also want to jump back to the 1850s or a little bit earlier and talk about the theme of blacks continuing to fight for equality and rights, or the role of government even before 1860, and how government is going to make changes to its constitution. So that's what you're trying to do. One thing that I do like seeing in your contextualization point is you're going to tell me dates, okay, especially the dates of the prompt, and then try to jump back or go back to an earlier time period. But the new thing that you can do is maybe save a sentence for what's happening during that time period between 1816 and 1877, like what else? So you can bring in the Industrial Revolution, you can bring in immigration, right? We see a new wave of immigration happening. We see Native American resistance. And so that's probably some ideas that you can do there to just add another sentence, especially if you feel as though you don't know what to write and you don't have enough sentences to talk about the trends or the patterns that you identify when you jump back a little bit before the prompt. So let me give you a couple of exemplars, and that hopefully can help you with crafting your next contextualization point. So let me get off of this. And so I'm going to give you a few. They're a little faded on my screen, but hopefully you guys can take a look at them. And so this one's looking at, since the Missouri Compromise of 1820 introduced the debates over the issue of slavery. So 1820 is a little far back, but what I like about this person is that they do get to this idea that there's these moral questions, it's a dispute over federal powers, but this part, it fits into the larger trend of amplifying conflicts around slavery or freedom. And then they also tell me that eventually leads to the Civil War. Okay? And once again, this person saying this was a time of, oh, there we go. This is a time of controversy. Okay? Those things are really important to note because that's the contextualization language. So beyond anything else, you really need to signal that that is what you're trying to do. And what I've realized is most readers want you to do well. And even if it's not the best contextualization, you know what you're doing, and they should be able to reward you a point. When this person gets down here and they start talking about this lower part, this is really going to be the beginning of their thesis. So your contextualization doesn't need to be that long, okay? But probably it stops about right here, okay? So let's take a look at another one. Okay, once again, it might be a little tough to read, but this one at least is easier to know where their thesis or their claim starts. Okay, this one, what you're going to notice is there's a lot of contextualization happening because they're using she content-rich sentences. They're talking about popular sovereignty, they're talking about the Compromise of 1850, but they're doing that by saying this was a time of redefining the federal government. So they're showing a bit of a theme, and then they're coming up with the Civil War, which is ultimately probably some of the best contextualization if you're going to talk about Reconstruction. But they do something else again. They say this fits into the development because it expands the role of the federal government. So once again, these are just some examples. I want you to notice the length that they're writing. So it's about like a quarter of a page. And they're also making sure that they're using those phrases like fits into this time period, identifies a trend, and they're using a lot of she points. So what I would say is if you're having some difficulty, pause the video on each of these contextualization points, and hopefully that's going to help you do better next time. So I wanted to wrap this up in about 5 minutes, and it's a little bit over 5 minutes, so we can end here. But hopefully this is an instructional video that helps you see what you need to be doing, and it helps you review a little bit. So I will talk to you in class.